I'm the last employee at a mall that shut down years ago. Shadows after closing. It's strange, the things we choose to keep alive long after they should be buried. Some people hold on to memories. Some hold on to grief. And some, like me, hold on to places, rotting shells of what once was. My name is Tyler Granger, and I used to work at the Westwood Galleria Mall. At least, that's what I told myself. The mall shut down over 8 years ago. The shops were boarded up, the food court chairs overturned and forgotten, and the skylights that once let in cheerful sun now stare into a permanent, suffocating dusk. But I never left. I never clocked out. At night, I hear the escalators running though the power was cut years ago. Sometimes the air smells like hot pretzels and cinnamon rolls. Sometimes I hear laughter, kids laughing, bouncing off empty tile floors. I tell myself I'm just remembering. But last night, something remembered me back. I've always felt tied to this place. I was just 18 when I got the job at a small electronics kiosk in the center court. Over the years I moved up, took on night security, then general maintenance. I learned every creaking vent, every buzzing fluorescent bulb, and every shortcut behind the storefront walls. When the mall announced its permanent closure in 2017, the other employees left in tears. But not me. I stayed behind, telling myself it was just for a little while. Just to help close things down properly. It's been 8 years. There's a twisted comfort in the silence now. I sleep in the old staff lounge above the JCPenney. The vending machines still have food. I restock them myself from shipments I order online, delivered to a P.O. box. I siphon power from nearby grid lines, keep the generators alive. Keep the mall alive. Or maybe it keeps me. Last night started like any other. I walked the usual route with my flashlight, through the central atrium, past the shattered Claire's and the dead-eyed mannequins of the former Macy's. I make sure no squatters have snuck in. But honestly, no one comes here anymore. Not since the incident. No one talks about the fire. They said it was faulty wiring. They said it was an accident. But I remember the smell. Burnt flesh mixed with plastic. They never found the security guard who went missing during that blaze. His name was Malcolm. We weren't close, but he had kind eyes. Sometimes I still hear his boots echoing in the upper floors. Around 2:17 a.m. while checking the West Wing, I passed by a storefront that shouldn't have been there. It wasn't boarded up like the others. No graffiti. No dust. The glass was pristine, like it had just been cleaned. And inside, bright lights, shelves stocked with toys, and an old-fashioned cash register. Toy store. But we never had a toy store in that wing. Not even when the mall was open. I approached slowly, heart thudding. The overhead mall speakers, silent for years, suddenly crackled to life. Musical note, come one, come all, the mall's still alive. Step inside and feel the vibe. Musical note. Froze. That jingle. I hadn't heard it since 2015. It was discontinued after the marketing team deemed it too unsettling. They said it reminded people of haunted carnivals. Now it echoed through the dead halls like a curse revived. I stepped forward and reached for the door handle. Cold. Like touching a frozen pipe. Against my better judgment, I pulled it open. Inside, the air smelled of fresh plastic and sugar. The walls were lined with dolls, trains, puzzles, everything pristine, untouched by time. It was so wrong, so impossibly new. My flashlight flickered, then died completely. I felt a presence then, like someone was watching me from behind the display of teddy bears. I turned sharply. Nothing. Then behind me a faint giggle. I spun around, but again nothing. The store was still. Silent. I backed out slowly, never taking my eyes off the center of the shop. And just as I stepped out, I saw it, barely. A face pressed to the glass from the inside. Ill. Featureless. Like a mannequin. But wrong. It didn't move. It didn't blink. But I knew it was alive. The door clicked shut behind me. Ran. I didn't stop until I reached the staff lounge, my lungs burning. I locked the door, barricaded it with chairs and boxes. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up hours later, light bleeding through the dust-covered window. My flashlight was sitting on the table, fully charged. But I hadn't put it there. I went back to the West Wing that morning. I needed to see if the toy store was still there. Needed to know if it was some kind of dream, hallucination. But when I got there, the storefront was gone. Boarded up again like all the others. The air smelled like mold and rot, the floor caked with dust. I checked my security tapes. At 2:17 a.m. the footage glitched, pixelated. Static consumed the screen for 5 minutes. When it cleared, I wasn't there. My entire patrol was missing. Like I'd vanished from the mall completely during that time. But the jingle was there. Musical note, come one, come all. Musical note. That damn song played clearly through the speakers on the tape. But the speakers haven't been wired in years. I should have left then. I should have packed my bags and never looked back. But something's keeping me here. Something that remembers my name. Because later that evening, a note appeared on my pillow. A note written in crayon. See you tonight, Tyler, smiley face. That was last night. I haven't left my room since. Every so often, I hear little footsteps echoing in the hallway outside. Rest, playful, childlike. There are no children here. There haven't been for years. Yet every hour on the dot, I hear the same soft giggle coming from behind the vending machines. And now, the jingle is playing again. It's not on tape. It's coming from the walls. Whatever is inside the mall. It wants me to stay. And the worst part is, think I want to. But why? The answer lies in that toy store. And tonight, I'm going back. The store that wasn't there. I waited until nightfall. Not because I wanted to, but because something in me knew daylight couldn't touch what lived in that part of the mall. During the day, the West Wing was dead, quiet as a tomb. But once the sky turned black and the old ceiling panels reflected only the buzzing emergency lights, that wing started to breathe. I equipped myself like a man preparing for war. Flashlight, backup batteries, a crowbar, and a small hand mirror. I'd read once that mirrors could reveal things hidden to the naked eye. I had no idea if that applied to haunted malls, but superstition was all I had left. With every step down the hallway I felt watched. The flickering bulbs above me pulsed like a heartbeat, syncing with my own. I could hear something behind me, bare feet pattering against linoleum, the sound always stopping when I turned. When I reached the West Wing I stopped short. Toy store was back. Fully intact, lit up like a carnival tent. Bright colors, perfect displays, rotating shelves of plush animals and board games spinning gently. And at the center, the same cash register, gleaming gold beneath a spotlight. But it was different this time. There was someone behind the counter. At first glance, I thought it was a child, a little girl with braids. But as I moved closer, my breath caught. Her head never moved. Her eyes never blinked. Her face looked drawn on, almost like it had been painted onto porcelain. She wore a name tag that read Lily. And her smile was so wide, so wrong it didn't seem real. I raised my flashlight and stepped inside. The moment I crossed the threshold, I heard it again. The jingle. Musical note, come one, come all, the mall's still alive. Musical note. Lily didn't react. She just stood there. That frozen smile plastered across her doll-like face. I moved slowly between the aisles, the crowbar tight in my hand. Something felt off. The air smelled sweet, but it had a rotting edge to it, like candy left out too long. And then I heard movement. To my left, behind a shelf stacked with toy trains, something skittered. I swung the flashlight in that direction and caught just a glimpse. Fingers. Long, too long, pale and jointed like a spider's legs. They slipped out of sight with a soft clatter. I backed away, heart hammering. The toys started to hum. Not move, hum. All at once, they emitted a low, vibrating sound, as though dozens of little machines were powering up. And then Lily spoke. Do you remember me, Tyler? Her voice was static, layered with echoes. Not a child's voice. Something older, wiser, crueler. Froze. My name coming from her unmoving lips. I waited for you. I turned and ran. I didn't care about answers anymore. I wanted out. But the door was gone. Where the glass exit had been was now a solid wall of shelves, stacked to the ceiling with dolls. Their glassy eyes followed me as I stumbled backward, breathing hard. "I've always been here," Lily said, her voice now coming from multiple places. From the speakers, from behind the shelves, from inside my own skull. "You just forgot." Suddenly, one of the dolls fell from the top shelf. It hit the floor with a fleshy thud. Not plastic. Flesh. I knelt down slowly, dread climbing up my spine, and turned it over. It was a face. Malcolm's face. Eyes sewn shut with red thread. Mouth twisted open in a silent scream. I recoiled, barely able to hold down the bile rising in my throat. "Do you remember what you did?" the voice asked. I didn't. I swear I didn't. But something inside me shuddered. The mall had shut down after the fire. Malcolm had gone missing. I'd always believed he died in the blaze. But what if that wasn't the whole story? What if the fire wasn't an accident? What if something had been here all along? I raised the mirror slowly and turned in a slow circle. For a moment nothing. Just rows of toys, shelves, and silence. And then movement. Behind me in the reflection a shape. Tall, faceless, arms hanging too long. A mouth stretching where no mouth should be. I spun around. Nothing. But I felt breath on the back of my neck. I ran deeper into the store, through a curtain of beads that clicked like bones, down a narrow aisle where the lights overhead pulsed red. The toys here were twisted. Grotesque versions of what they should be. Stuffed animals with teeth. Action figures with empty eye sockets. At the end of the aisle was a display case. Inside was a single object. An employee badge. But the name on it wasn't mine. Property of the mall. Asset number 37. Before I could process what that meant, I heard the sound again. Bare feet slapping against the tile. Closer. Faster. Then laughter. Not playful. Cruel. Mocking. I grabbed the badge and turned, crowbar raised. The figure was there now. Lily, or what used to be her, stepping into the red light. Her limbs were longer than they should be. Joints bending wrong. Her face peeling like old wallpaper to reveal raw muscle beneath. "You made a promise," she said. I stumbled back. "What do you want from me?" She grinned, her jaw stretching far too wide. "To finish your shift." The lights went out. I swung the crowbar wildly, hearing whispers all around me. "Come back. Finish the job." You never clocked out. When the lights flickered back on, I was outside the store again. The storefront was gone. I was back in the hallway, the crowbar still in my hand, my heart racing. My hands were shaking as I stumbled back to the lounge. I locked myself in, breathing hard, pacing. On the table was my mirror. Shattered. And beneath the shards, a new note in crayon. Asset number 37 must remain inside. Violation will trigger reset. Reset. I looked at my reflection in the glass door of the microwave. My face. But something was wrong. My eyes. For a split second they looked stitched. Like Malcolm's. Backed away. In the silence I heard a faint sound. Escalator. Running again. But only in the West Wing. I didn't sleep. I watched the hallway all night, waiting. The mall was quiet, but I knew it was only pretending. Luring me. Testing how far I'd go. At 3:33 a.m., I heard the intercom chime. Musical note, come one, come all. Musical note. Then a pause. Then a new message. Playtime resumes tomorrow. Please report to the toy department at opening. The voice was mine. Recorded. But I'd never said those words. Not that I remembered. Now I sit here, typing this out on an old kiosk computer that should have stopped working years ago. The screen glitches every few seconds. My reflection in the screen looks tired. Ill. But when I blink, he doesn't. I'm starting to wonder if I ever left that toy store. Or if I was ever real to begin with. If I go back, maybe I'll find answers. Maybe I'll find Lily. Maybe I'll find myself. But what if I already did? And what if what came back wasn't me? The mannequin room. I didn't go back to the toy store the next night. Not willingly, at least. But the mall, this place, it doesn't wait for consent. Around 2 a.m., the emergency lights blinked off across the entire building. Not just a flicker. Total darkness. Then came the sound again. That soft, echoing jingle floating in from the west wing, distant and dissonant, crawling into my ears like a whisper made of static. Musical note, come one, come all. Musical note. I tried to ignore it. Curled up on the ratty couch in the employee lounge. Hands clenched tight around the crowbar. But then the floor began to shift. The linoleum trembled beneath my feet. A deep rumble, like something moving underneath the structure. I stood quickly, but the lights in the room sputtered and dimmed into a pulsing reddish hue. That's when I noticed the hallway was gone. Where it should have been, there was now a corridor of mirrors. Tall warped glass on either side, each panel showing me, but not me. In one I had no eyes. In another, my mouth stretched down to my chest. One version of me bled from the forehead, endlessly. But they all moved when I didn't. Staring at me. Grinning. I backed up, but the door behind me had vanished too. The mall doesn't rearrange like a building. Breathe. Decides. And it had decided it was time to show me something new. I walked forward, hesitant, flashlight flickering in and out. My footsteps echoed loud, but the air felt thick, like I was underwater. Somewhere far off I heard a creaking sound. Then a scraping. Then the sound of many feet moving slowly across the floor. I passed the last mirror and stepped into a room I hadn't seen before. Clothing store. But not any I recognized from the mall's layout. No signage. No branding. Just endless rows of mannequins. Hundreds of them. Every single one frozen mid-pose. Few looked normal. Most didn't. Twisted arms. Hands with too many fingers. Smiles carved where there shouldn't be any. I swear one blinked as I passed. The air smelled like old plastic and perfume that had rotted decades ago. In the center of the store stood a register, like the one in the toy store. Behind it, a figure dressed in an old security uniform. I moved closer, careful not to make noise. The figure didn't react, didn't move. Until I was only a few feet away. Then his head snapped up. "Where's your badge?" he asked. Froze. The voice was gravel, like stones being crushed beneath something heavy. I don't have one," I stammered. "No badge, no clearance." "You don't belong here," he growled. "You're not supposed to see this part." The mannequins twitched. All of them. Limbs jerked slightly, heads tilting. One dropped to all fours. "I work here," I said quickly, showing my employee tag. The one I found in the toy store, the one labeled Asset Number 37. His eyes narrowed. They weren't eyes at all, I realized. Hollow sockets with something moving inside. "Then you're late," he said. He stepped aside and pointed toward a heavy, unmarked door behind him. "Clock in." I didn't want to. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. But the mannequins were blocking the way now. Their heads all turned toward me, hands slowly lifting. Some had mouths that opened too wide, revealing rows of porcelain teeth. I went to the door. Beyond it was a stairwell, narrow concrete, descending endlessly into darkness. I stepped carefully, each stair creaking under my weight, the air getting colder with each step. After what felt like an hour, I reached another door. Rusted metal. No handle. It opened on its own. I stepped into what looked like a break room. But the tables were upside down, nailed to the ceiling. The chairs were missing legs. And the vending machine sold things I couldn't identify. Flesh-colored cubes. Bottles labeled Echo. A bag of chips that whispered when I walked past. I saw someone sitting at the far end of the room. Malcolm. He was facing away from me, slumped forward. His arms dangled at strange angles, fingers twitching rhythmically. I stepped closer, heart in my throat. "Malcolm," I whispered. He turned. His eyes were still sewn shut. His mouth opened slowly, strings of something black spilling out. You left me behind, he said, but his lips didn't move. The voice came from somewhere else, above me, behind me, inside my skull. No, I didn't know. You burned the exits. You locked the doors. You thought they wouldn't follow. My knees gave out, collapsed to the floor. I don't remember, I whispered. I don't remember doing any of that. He stood, but not by rising. He was lifted like a puppet, limbs jerking into place. From behind his back, strings trailed upward into the ceiling. I looked up and saw it. A massive figure clinging to the ceiling like a spider. Thin limbs, long neck, no face. It held strings in every hand. Dozens, hundreds, all connected to mannequins, employees, echoes of people who had once walked this mall. You were the first, it said. Not out loud. In my thoughts, like a virus crawling into my brain. You opened the gate. I tried to back away, but the floor wasn't floor anymore. It was shifting beneath me, sucking me downward. Faces pressed against the surface, screaming silently, eyes pleading. I reached for the crowbar. My flashlight flickered once more, then burst. Darkness swallowed everything. Then silence. When I came to, I was lying in the food court. Lights on. Clean. Like nothing had ever happened. My phone sat on the table beside me. Fully charged. No missed calls. No messages. Just one new app installed, one I didn't recognize. Clock in. Tapped it. The screen went black. Then a prompt. Welcome back, asset number 37. Shift in progress. I looked up. Every storefront was open again. Employees I didn't recognize manned the counters. They smiled at me. And every one of them had stitched eyes. The food court feast. By now, I'd stopped trying to make sense of what was happening. I wasn't sure what was real anymore, if anything was. The mall breathed, changed, twitched, and I was being pulled deeper into its stomach with each passing night. That morning, after waking up in the food court, I tried to leave. Course I did. I walked straight to the main entrance, past the shining storefronts that shouldn't have been open, an electronics shop full of TVs playing static, a cosmetics booth manned by a smiling woman with no face, a shoe store displaying identical pairs in every size and color. Except the shoes pulsed slightly like they were alive. Still I walked past them. Had to get out. But when I reached the mall's glass entrance, there was no outside. Just a wall of gray. Not fog. Not shadow. Just absence. Like the world had been erased beyond the mall's walls. I placed my hand against the glass. Cold. Solid. My own reflection stared back, but blinked at the wrong time. I turned and walked back into the mall, trying not to let the panic swallow me whole. If I couldn't get out, maybe I could find answers. Or something that made this place behave like a building again. The food court was the only place that felt remotely familiar. The tables were clean, the fake plants uncharacteristically fresh. The neon lights above the Burger Haven sign hummed softly. Everything felt staged, too pristine. I sat at a table and waited. Then the intercom crackled to life. Asset number 37. Your lunch break has begun. Report to station. My throat went dry. The voice was mechanical but too human. Each word perfectly enunciated but hollow, like someone was reading from inside a vacuum. I didn't move. The lights dimmed slightly. Non-compliance will result in penalties. That did it. I stood up and made my way toward the food vendors. One by one, the lights above them flickered on. Burger Haven. Panda Treats. Slice Square. But behind each counter wasn't a worker. There were mannequins dressed in old stained uniforms, their heads tilted forward like they were asleep standing up. I approached the counter. A meal tray was waiting for me. Burger, fries, a drink. Except the burger was leaking something dark green. The fries were squirming slightly, like they hadn't been fried, just drugged into stillness. And the drink, it pulsed faintly like it had a heartbeat. I turned to leave. A mannequin twitched. Its head snapped up. Its mouth opened. Eat. I backed away, shaking my head. The mannequin reached over the counter with impossibly long arms. It picked up the tray and extended it toward me. Every other mannequin behind other counters turned their heads in unison. Eat. Eat. I didn't know what else to do. Took the tray. The moment I did, a bell chimed above the food court, and a row of overhead lights flickered violently. The crowd began to arrive. Not people. Not employees. Shadows in the shape of humans, silhouettes with glowing eyes. They sat at the other tables, one by one, facing me. Silent. Watching. Their presence pressed in on me like a wall of pressure. I sat down. Hands trembling. Picked up the burger. It smelled like burnt plastic and old meat. Peeled back the bun. Something wriggled inside, white, spindly tendrils coiled like roots. I closed the bun again. Eat. The shadows hissed in unison, a chorus of static and rot. Took a bite. Taste was. Can't describe it. It wasn't food. It was memory. Rotting memory. Like I'd taken a bite out of an old dream. My head swam. The shadows leaned in. Heard music. That damn jingle again. Musical note, come one, come all. Feed the hunger. Take the call. Musical note. I shoved the tray off the table and stood up. The lights died. The shadows lunged. Ran. Down the corridor near the restrooms, I found an old maintenance door. I kicked it open and slammed it behind me. Inside, the hallway was pitch black. My phone's flashlight flickered back to life on its own. Ahead, a map on the wall. Sub-basement 3, staff resources. I followed the signs, heart hammering, eyes darting around for anything moving. The walls were lined with old photographs. Black and white shots of mall employees from decades ago. Smiling. Standing in rows. Only each photo had one face scratched out. Violently. Like someone had clawed the eyes out of every single image. And some of the scratched-out figures looked eerily familiar. One had my jawline. Another had my eyes. I reached the sub-basement. The door opened with a metallic shriek. Inside, rows of old lockers, half open, revealing rotted uniforms, moldy shoes, a few name tags covered in dust. Picked one up. Asset number 36, T. Jensen. I remembered that name. He was listed in the orientation manual. The one employee who went missing the week before the mall closed. No body found. Just blood on the floor of the loading dock. Another locker creaked open. Turned. A shadow stood behind it. No, not a shadow. Man. Skin like crumpled paper. His eyes were wide, bloodshot but alert. He raised a finger to his lips. Quiet, he rasped. They can hear thoughts now. I stared. Who are you? Asset number 36, he whispered. They almost replaced me. Almost forgot who I was. But I hid. Deep enough. His voice cracked like dry leaves. You ate, didn't you? I nodded slowly. He looked down at my stomach. Then you're already becoming part of the mall. What do you mean? He turned and pointed to a steel door marked, Loss Prevention, Restricted. Everything the mall eats it keeps. But it disguises it. Stores it. You want to leave. You need to find the original layout. The blueprint. The way it used to be. I followed him to the door. He placed a hand against the panel and it melted open, revealing a room made entirely of screens. CCTV footage. Decades worth. Some in color. Some in black and white. One screen flickered to life. Me. Walking down the toy aisle. Talking to Malcolm. Sleeping in the lounge. Another screen. Malcolm being pulled by something we never saw. Another. The mall. Breathing. Its corridors pulsing like veins. I stepped back dizzy. This place, asset number 36 whispered, was never just a mall. It's a vessel. Skin. Something lives beneath it. And every employee who ever worked here. He pointed at the screen again. They're still here. Just not like they were. Then the screens turned red. The alarms blared. The intercom crackled. Asset number 37, you are off course. Please return to designated station for correction. The floor began to move. The walls stretched. I turned to 36. What now? He grinned, teeth rotting. Now we go down even further. And the floor beneath us opened like a mouth. The forgotten floor. It fell. Not like a quick drop. This was slow, stomach-turning, as if the floor were a throat and we were being swallowed, inch by inch. The dim red glow from the monitors above faded until there was nothing but darkness and the sticky, wet sound of the walls closing around us. Then a jolt. We landed hard on a cold, metallic surface. I groaned and pushed myself up, only to find that asset number 36 was already standing, completely unfazed. This is where they keep the ones who woke up too late, he muttered. A hallway stretched ahead of us, narrow and curved like the inside of a pipe. It smelled like burnt oil and rotting paper. Every few feet, a dim light pulsed overhead, but it didn't illuminate much. Just shadows shifting along the walls, like they were waiting for something. Or someone. Followed him. We passed doors. Some were sealed with thick chains. Others weren't locked at all, just slightly ajar, darkness leaking from inside them like liquid. On one door, words were carved deeply into the wood, over and over again. I remember myself. I remember myself. Inside that room I saw a mirror. Only the reflection didn't match. My body stood in front of it, but the reflection didn't move when I did. It just watched me with a crooked grin and whispered something I couldn't hear. I shut the door quickly. Don't look too long, 36 warned. It learns faster when you focus. We kept moving. Eventually, the hallway opened into a wide, domed chamber. The walls were lined with file cabinets, stacked floor to ceiling, some labeled with numbers, others with names. A spotlight clicked on above a dusty table in the center of the room. A single folder sat there. My name on the tab. Opened it. Inside pages upon pages of notes. My conversations from the break room. Logs of my routines. Even my dreams from the nights I'd fallen asleep in the security lounge. How does it know all this? Yes. 36 stepped beside me. Because once you clock in, you never really clock out. He opened another drawer. Pulled out another folder. Welcomes. Inside were photos. Him sitting in the toy store aisle. Him talking to me. Him staring into the security mirror. On the final page, a timestamp and the words reclaimed, reassigned. What does that mean? Asked. He didn't answer. He just closed the folder and stared at the wall opposite us. Turned. There were windows. They looked into other rooms, observation chambers. In one, a young woman sat motionless at a counter, endlessly bagging invisible groceries. Her mouth moved silently, repeating the same phrase over and over. In another, a teenage boy scrubbed an already spotless floor while crying, though no sound came through. They're stuck in their last shift, 36 whispered. The mall absorbs their purpose, turns it into routine. It keeps them busy so they forget they were ever real. He paused, then turned to me. You've got one shot. There's an old elevator in the atrium above this floor. Predates the mall. It was part of the old foundation. If you can get to it, it might still connect to the surface. Might. He shrugged. Or it drops you deeper. Your call. Something shifted above us. Metal creak. Then footsteps. No, not footsteps. Wheels. Rolling fast. Loss prevention, 36 muttered. Time's up. We ran. The hallway narrowed again. The air was hotter now, filled with mechanical hums and the distant sound of jingles playing backward. We reached the atrium. It was massive. A spiraling cathedral of rusted steel and broken glass, the bones of the original mall long buried beneath the renovations. Ivy-like cables hung from the ceiling, pulsing softly. At the center, an old gated elevator, one of those ancient kinds with the iron lattice doors and manual crank. We sprinted for it. Behind us the thing was coming. Loss prevention. It was a cart, like one used for janitorial supplies. But twisted, its wheels scraped and sparked. The supplies had faces. A mop with blinking eyes. A broom that whispered. A bucket that bled. And pushing it no one. It moved on its own, hunting us. We reached the elevator. 36 slammed the gate shut and began cranking. The elevator groaned to life. The cart collided with the metal bars, shrieking. The mop lashed out, nearly catching my arm before I yanked it back. The thing hissed something unintelligible, its wheels spinning madly as we rose. The elevator climbed, past floors that didn't exist. One level looked like a hospital. Another, a children's birthday party with all the guests frozen mid-scream. Another was filled with mannequins posed in prayer, each holding a small name tag in their palms. The higher we went, the colder it got. The elevator stopped. The door opened into a blank corridor. Just white walls, bright lights, no sound. This isn't the exit, I said. 36 stepped out anyway. It's the in-between. The mole's subconscious. If we stay too long, it'll rewrite us. We walked. The hallway twisted without warning, curving and folding in ways that hurt to look at. We passed doors that blinked, floors that sighed. A vending machine offered memories instead of snacks. One bag said, "Your 10th birthday." Another said, "The last time you felt safe." I didn't touch them. Then we came to a glass wall. Behind it, a version of the mall. Perfect. Clean. Bright. Filled with laughing customers and smiling staff. Me. I was there. Standing behind a counter, greeting shoppers, laughing. My movements were smooth, rehearsed. I looked content. "That's the replacement," 36 whispered. "It's ready to swap you in." I turned to him. "So what do we do?" He looked at me for a long time. Then he opened a panel on the wall and pulled out 2 keycards. One opens the final elevator. The other erases your file. You can't do both. My mind raced. Which one gets me out? He smiled sadly. That's the trick. One gets you out. The other ensures they never use you again. But you won't know which until it's too late. I stared at the cards. Behind the glass, my doppelganger waved. Then the lights flickered. The replacement began walking toward a door. "Choose," 36 said. And I did. Replacement protocol. I swiped the keycard. The slot hissed. A light above turned green, and a heavy metal door slid open to our left. 36 didn't say a word. He just gave me a look, a mix of warning and regret, then turned and walked back into the hallway from where we came, disappearing into the white light. I stepped through the door alone. Darkness. Thick and absolute, like velvet wrapped around my face. The floor beneath my feet felt uneven, like I was walking across a giant, slumbering body. Each step made a dull, wet sound. And something whispered my name, not from behind me, but from inside my own thoughts. Then the lights snapped on. I was in the food court, only not the real one. It was pristine, uncannily clean. Not a single tray on a table, not a crumb on the floor. The storefronts were intact. The flickering neon signs no longer flickered. The mall wasn't just alive here, it was perfect. Too perfect. A voice echoed over the PA system. Artificial. "Welcome back, valued associate. Orientation resumes now." Turned. There I was again. Or rather, the replacement. My smiling replica, dressed in a crisp uniform, pushing a cleaning cart. It moved with purpose, humming a tune I didn't recognize but somehow knew by heart. "Hey!" called out. The copy didn't react. I stepped in front of it. It paused, tilted its head and blinked. Once, twice, like it was trying to decide if I was real. Then it smiled again. But this time the smile twitched. "Anomaly detected," it said, its voice too smooth. "Initiating memory overwrite." Backed away. But behind me now stood others. Dozens of replacements. Each one wearing a uniform from a different store. All of them with identical, smiling faces. Some looked like people I remembered from past shifts. People I knew had gone missing. Here they were again. Mannequin perfect. Hollow-eyed. They began closing in. My hand darted to the keycard. I saw 2 slots now. One on a panel labeled exit, the other on one marked wipe. I hesitated. Which one was which? The replacement me lunged. I shoved the card into the wipe slot. A sound, deep and grinding, like the mall itself was groaning in protest. The walls rippled. The overhead lights burst in showers of glass. From above, a shriek, metallic and furious, echoed as alarms screamed. Unauthorized protocol breach. The replacements began to melt. Not literally, but their faces flickered. They staggered, hands clutching at temples, eyes going blank. Some began whispering names. Others dropped to the floor, writhing as if something was being pulled out of them. Then the floor split open, right beneath my feet. I fell again. No resistance, no sensation, just a sudden drop into a new reality. This time I landed in what looked like a conference room. Except the walls were mirrors. Dozens of me stared back. Some were laughing. Some were crying. One sat in a corner, hugging her knees, her mouth moving in frantic whispers. "I'm not here, I'm not here, I'm not here." A pay voice returned. Asset corruption detected. Performing restoration sequence. Mo. Not again. I ran to the door, but it was gone. Only mirrors now. And the reflections began moving on their own. Not mimicking, but independent. One version reached out of the glass, its fingers wet and skeletal. Another pounded the surface, screaming silently. The one in the corner stood up and stared at me with eyes completely black. They all began whispering the same phrase. "One of us must stay." The room started to tilt. I slid toward the largest mirror, hands scraping for anything to hold onto. Just before I slammed into it, a figure appeared behind the glass. 36. He pressed his palm to the inside. "Break it," his voice echoed in my head. "You have to shatter your place here." I looked down. There at my feet, an emergency fire axe. I hadn't seen it before. Had it always been there? Grabbed it. The reflections screamed in unison. Some begged. Others snarled. The corner girl sobbed and held her hands out like a shield. I didn't stop. Swung. The mirror cracked, webbed, then burst into thousands of shards. The room collapsed around me like falling dominoes. Reality folded inward. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was in the security lounge again. The monitors were static. The clock read 12 a.m. Everything looked normal. No blood. No screaming voices. No mannequins. Just the quiet hum of old electronics and flickering fluorescent lights. I stood slowly. Had I dreamt it? Was I asleep the entire time? But no. On the desk was the folder with my name. Open. The last page had changed. Subject declined integration. Backup protocol failed. Reassign location. There was a map. The mall again. Only this time it had changed. Entire wings that never existed were drawn in. A new level beneath the basement. A note. Reintegration point under renovation. And in the corner, scrawled in red ink. You may have escaped this shift. But the mall remembers. Then the lights went out. And something knocked from inside the security closet. 3 soft knocks. Then a pause. Then 3 more. Backed away. The knock repeated. And then from inside my own voice whispered. Time to clock in. Clock in room. I didn't move. The knock came again. 3 steady raps from the other side of the closet door. My own voice echoed right after, low and dry like dead leaves brushing across concrete. Time to clock in. My hands trembled. I scanned the room for anything I could use. A chair, a flashlight, anything, but the place had changed. Early. The wall calendar that once showed 2009 now displayed no year at all, only a looping week where every day was Monday. The security monitors were still static, except one now showed the closet door from the inside. I watched the screen. It was pitch black. Until a figure shifted in the shadows. I lunged at the desk and pulled the drawer open, expecting dust or empty binders, but instead found a thick employee handbook labeled Level 3 Orientation. I hadn't seen it before. My name was etched into the cover, handwritten in something that looked more like dried blood than ink. I flipped it open. Pages full of rules. Do not respond to voices mimicking your own. Never open the door if the knock pattern is familiar. If the mall resets, pretend not to notice. You were never hired. Stop asking. I slammed the book shut. The knocking stopped. Then the closet door handle twisted slowly. Blick. A long hiss of air escaped the crack as the door creaked open, inch by inch. I held my breath, backing away until I hit the opposite wall. Something emerged. It was me. Or almost me. Like someone had tried to build me from memory but got lazy halfway. The skin was a shade too pale, the eyes a bit too wide, the smile crooked and too enthusiastic, like a child drawing happiness from a nightmare. Clock in, it said again. But this time I heard other voices layered beneath mine. Past employees, old announcements, static garbled beneath flesh. My face on the thing twisted as it stepped closer. Ran. The hallway outside the security room wasn't what I remembered. Gone was the map, the trash bins, the signs. Instead, the walls were all covered in old photographs. Employee portraits. Rows of them. But every single face was blank, as if their features had been erased. Beneath each photo, names were scratched in. The last photo had my uniform, my ID badge. But the face was just gone. I kept moving, heart slamming in my chest. I turned a corner, nearly slipping on what looked like wet floor, and saw it. Clock-in room. 'Twas new. A steel vault-like door labeled in bright red letters. Time control. Access authorized to level 4+. My ID shouldn't have worked. But when I swiped it, the reader blinked green. Inside was not a room. It was a massive vertical shaft, a void stretching endlessly down, walls lined with rusted lockers and time cards that fluttered despite no wind. A single floating platform hovered at the edge, waiting. There was no other choice. I stepped on. It descended slowly, the hum of ancient machinery vibrating through my feet. Lights on the walls flickered past, some showing looping memories like old CCTV footage. I saw myself as a kid, in a mall, tugging my mom's hand toward the toy store. Then another memory. Me age 16 working my first job. In a food court. Same layout. Same floor pattern. Then a final one. Me entering this mall last week. But I wasn't alone. 36 was with me. And someone else. A woman in a red jacket. I didn't remember her. But in the footage she held my hand. I touched the glass. "Who are you?" I whispered. The memory flickered. Then the power cut out. The platform stopped mid-drop. Total darkness. I felt the weight of 1,000 eyes watching from the shaft walls. A single screen on the wall lit up. A message scrolled slowly across it. "Welcome to overtime." The lights surged back on, and the platform rocketed downward fast. Too fast. My stomach slammed into my lungs. Then a silence. Stop. The door ahead of me opened with a slow groan. The room beyond was red. Flooded in light so intense it felt like standing under a bleeding sun. Dozens of clocks lined the walls, each ticking at different speeds. Some were frozen. Some spun so fast they blurred. In the center of the room was a single desk. And sitting behind it was me. Older. Grayer. Tired. "You finally made it," he said. I couldn't speak. "You broke the loop, sort of," he said, standing. "But the mall doesn't let go that easy." "What is this place?" finally asked. He smiled sadly. "It's not a mall. It's a memory trap. Parasitic echo. We all wandered in. Some got jobs, others just disappeared. But all of us gave it something." I stepped closer. He looked so real. More real than me. "I don't remember giving anything." "You gave time," he said. "Your time. It feeds on it." I felt my knees shaking. "What happens now?" He walked to me and pressed something into my palm. A punch card, yellowed and warm like skin. "You clock out," he said. "Or you become me." I looked at the card. It had one word stamped on it. Void. Behind me the clock stopped ticking. Door hissed open. It led back to the mall. Not a memory. Not a simulation. The real one. Me. Silent. I turned to ask him what to do next, But he was gone. Only the desk remained. I walked through the door. And there I was again. In the mall. Same mall. But the storefronts were gutted. The food court was dust. And on every wall, scrawled in huge black paint, "You never left." And worse, down the corridor I saw people. Shadows. Walking. Laughing. Normal. I shouted for help. They didn't hear me. I ran toward them, waving my arms, screaming. They passed right through me. My reflection in the glass door was fading. Flickering. A voice whispered behind me again. Time to clock in. And this time, I didn't resist. The escalator that went nowhere. The mall was bustling. Children's laughter echoed through the atrium. Food court trays clattered. A soft pop track played overhead, and the scent of cinnamon buns wafted from the bakery. Everything looked clean, live, perfect. But no one saw me. I stood in the middle of it all, waving, shouting, even crying out. No one turned. I tried to touch someone's shoulder, a woman in a green dress, but my hand passed straight through her. I was a ghost. Well, I wasn't even that. I was stuck in between. I backed away from the crowd, heart thundering. Everyone walked past like I didn't exist. I looked at the walls again, no longer painted with ominous phrases. Everything was pristine. Too pristine. That's when I saw it. The escalator. Dead center of the mall. Same place it had always been. But the signage had changed. Instead of second floor department store, it now read, Level -1. Employee processing. I'd never seen that before. I didn't want to step on it. But I did. Because deep down I think I already knew. The escalator moved slowly at first, humming beneath me like it hadn't been used in years. Shoppers passed by above, oblivious, frozen in their cycle of fake joy and empty gestures. The lights flickered. Then the escalator sped up. The walls beside me grew dark. The tiles crumbled to reveal rusted metal and black cables. Posters curled and peeled, revealing strange warnings beneath. Ancient safety notices in languages I didn't recognize. Everything smelled like rot and dust. By the time I reached the bottom, I realized there was no music anymore. No voices. No light. Only a door. Marked. Process incomplete. Finalize shift to proceed. There was a button next to it. Red. Pulsing. I didn't press it. Instead I looked around. This level didn't feel like a basement. Felt like a bunker. The air was still heavy. Fluorescent lights buzzed above, their casings full of dead bugs and cracked glass. On the walls, faded posters of happy employees holding thumbs up next to slogans like, "Your time is ours now. Punctuality is purpose. Remember, escape is theft." Shuddered. Then the intercom crackled overhead. A familiar voice spoke. Employee 722. Final processing required. Please proceed to verification room 3. My feet moved before I could stop them. The hallway branched endlessly, but somehow I found room 3. The door opened automatically. Inside a single chair. And a mirror. Set. The moment I did, lights flared above, and the mirror shimmered, becoming a screen. My face appeared. But not just now, a collage of every version of me that had walked these halls. Young, old, terrified, numb. Then the voice again. State your role. I swallowed. Employee. Incorrect. The lights dimmed slightly. Try again. I hesitated. Victim. Incorrect. The lights pulsed red. Final attempt. I stared at my reflection. So many of me staring back. Product. Silence. Then a chime. Correct. Welcome to permanence. The mirror vanished, revealing a window. And outside that window, a factory floor. Hundreds, thousands of figures in mall uniforms, endlessly stocking invisible shelves, mopping the same tiles, straightening non-existent racks. Their faces were featureless. Their motions identical. One of them looked up. It was me. Then another. And another. Dozens of me working in perfect sync. I backed away from the chair, slamming into the wall. The room began to close in, shrinking. The floor tiles reshaped themselves into clock faces, hands spinning rapidly beneath my feet. A panel opened beside the window. Inside, a keycard. Name. My photo. One word beneath it. Permanent. Took it, hands shaking. The intercom buzzed again. Proceed to Orientation Theater B. The hallway opened before me. No walls now, just mannequins lining the path. Some held shopping bags. Others held severed limbs. Their heads turned slowly as I passed, one by one, always watching. The Orientation Theater was vast and dark, a massive screen already flickering at the front. I sat down, alone in the middle row. The film started. It was footage of me entering the mall for the first time. But it wasn't last week. It was years ago. I watched myself smile, take the keys from the manager, step behind the information desk, proud. Then time sped up. The lights above me flickered in rhythm with the screen. I saw myself working. And working. And working. No visitors. No holidays. Just repetition. Over and over. Flickering memories of every night shift blended into one endless loop of forgotten birthdays, holidays missed, and a life absorbed. Then I saw the others. Faces I recognized. 36. The red-jacketed woman. That bald old janitor. The mall had taken them all. And kept their echoes like insects in amber. The screen went dark. A final message flashed. Thank you for your service. You are now forever part of the experience. The doors behind me locked with a hard clank. But a side door opened, leading back up. Back to the escalator. Ran. I didn't stop. I didn't breathe. The escalator moved on its own now, pulling me up. The mall above was empty again. Rotting. The illusion gone. No shoppers. No light. Just the bones of something that had once pretended to be real. At the information desk sat my uniform. Folded. On top of it, my name tag. But scratched into the desk now were fresh words, still wet and red. Time owns you. Behind me, footsteps. Dozens of them. All wearing my shoes. Door 17C. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. The sound of those footsteps behind me, identical, deliberate, grew louder. Heavier. Like someone or something was walking in rhythm with my heartbeat. I gripped the edge of the information desk, breath shallow, trying to convince myself I still had control, that I was still me. But then I heard my own voice whisper behind me. You're late for your shift. I spun around. There was nothing. Just the empty corridor stretching toward the old food court, the overhead lights buzzing, a flicker passing through every other one. Somewhere far down that corridor, I thought I saw a shape move, a silhouette breaking the shadows, but it was gone before I could focus on it. I backed away slowly, nearly tripping over the folded uniform that had been left for me. I left it there. I didn't care if they called me a thief or a traitor. I wasn't putting that thing on again. But something else was waiting. As I turned the corner, I noticed a flickering sign I'd never seen before, just above one of the closed storefronts. Store 17C. Employee Resolution Center. That wasn't a real store. I had memorized every single tenant of this place, even the ones that had shut down before my time. There was no Store 17C. But its gate was partially lifted, just high enough to crawl under. And from inside something called to me. Not in words. In memory. In regret. I dropped to my knees and pulled myself under the gate. Inside was nothing like a retail space. It looked like a medical wing. Bright white walls. Rows of padded chairs. A vending machine full of pills instead of snacks. And at the back, a large black door with the word "Closure" printed on it in silver lettering. As soon as I entered, the gate slammed down behind me. No going back. I tried the door. A soft chime came from the wall. Touch screen lit up. Welcome, employee number 722. We've detected emotional imbalance. Please select your unresolved issue. Missed birthdays. Lack of recognition. Inability to escape. Loss of self. I reached out and pressed loss of self. The lights dimmed. The walls began to pulse, like a heartbeat. A low-frequency hum filled the room, like the air itself was vibrating. Then the door opened, and inside was a mirror. Again, I should have known. But this mirror was different. Moved. My reflection stepped forward while I stayed still. It smiled, tilted its head. Then it spoke. "You left me here." I tried to back up, but my feet were glued to the floor. I watched as the mirror version of me pressed its hand to the glass, and the surface rippled like water. "You got out. You saw the world. You let me rot in the fluorescent dark. You forgot." It stepped through the mirror like a sheet of smoke. Then we were face to face. I couldn't speak. My throat closed up. But I didn't forget. It reached out, running a finger down my cheek. "Now I'll take it back." Then everything shattered. Mirror, lights, floor, fell. Through endless shelves and broken mannequins. Through looping corridors. Through old advertisements that reached out with paper hands. Through whispered apologies and forgotten time cards. And I landed, back at the break room. As if nothing had happened. The vending machine hummed softly. The clock on the wall read 2:53 a.m. Same time it always seemed to be when things went wrong. My head throbbed. My hands trembled. The door creaked open. And I stepped in. The mirror version. Wearing the uniform. Smiling that same dead smile. I backed up against the counter. "You shouldn't have left," it said. "You belong here." I tried to speak, but it was faster. It lunged, hands like ice wrapping around my throat. I kicked and scrambled, knocking over chairs. My fingers found the edge of the microwave. I smashed it into its face. Screamed. Not in pain but in alarm. And more footsteps echoed outside. They were coming. More of me. Had seconds. I turned and grabbed the fire extinguisher off the wall. Not to fight them, but to smash the glass panel behind the sink. A narrow crawl space. I dove in, barely squeezing through. Their hands clawed behind me, grabbing at my legs, my shoes, my memory. But I crawled. Through dust and darkness. Through tight coils of forgotten wiring and ancient rot. Rats scattered beside me. Vents groaned. Felt like miles. Until I hit a wall. A dead end. No escape. I pounded on the metal. And that's when the alarm started. Red lights flooded the crawlspace. A mechanical voice droned through the walls. "Employee number 722. Unauthorized absence detected. Reclamation protocol initiated." From the shadows behind me they came again. Crawling. Dozens of me. Every version I'd ever been. Is blank. Mouth silent. They didn't scream. They didn't shout. They just took me. Dragged me backward through the vent. Back into the mall. Back into the illusion. I fought. I screamed. But everything went black. And when I opened my eyes again, I was standing behind the information desk. In uniform. The mall was open. Shoppers passed by. Child waved at me. I smiled back automatically. I didn't remember how I got there. Only that I was on shift. And the clock read 2:53 a.m. The permanent shift. I stood there behind the information desk. Smile glued to my face like it had been stitched on. Everything looked normal. But the normality was a trap. A meticulously painted lie. The mall was alive again. Stores open, customers walking, lights bright and inviting. But something beneath the surface pulsed wrong, like a heartbeat out of rhythm. I tried to speak, to ask someone if they saw what I saw. But no words came out. My voice had been replaced with silence. My body moved on its own, mechanical and rehearsed. I answered fake questions with fake answers, nodded to faceless shoppers, handed out imaginary coupons. It was a performance I never signed up for, one I couldn't stop. Then I noticed something new on the wall. Plaque. Right above the security monitor. Employee of the month. Number 722, 237 consecutive months of service. My own face grinned back at me in the photo. But my eyes weren't mine. They were empty. Hollow. The kind of emptiness that didn't just happen, it was designed. Suddenly, the speaker above me crackled to life. "Attention staff. Store 17C is now hiring. All applicants will be evaluated immediately. Froze. The shoppers stopped walking. Every head turned toward me at once. Expressionless. Identical. Like mannequins brought to life. Then they all began walking in sync. Heard me. My feet moved before my brain did. I ran. I didn't know where, just away. Through the concourse. Past stores that flickered between abandoned ruins and lively storefronts. Past the food court, where meals molded and revived in reverse. Past escalators that descended into nothing. Everywhere I turned, mirrored versions of myself stepped out from store entrances. Watching. Waiting. Like they'd been assigned to different areas of my own mind. I ducked into the old maintenance corridor. The lights buzzed overhead. A fluorescent strobe of madness. The smell of burnt plastic and floor wax filled my lungs. I tripped over a tangle of wires. One of them was pulsing. Live. Down the hall, the old janitor's closet was open. Inside was a staircase. I'd never seen it before. A spiral down, not underground but through something else. Something deeper than space. I didn't think. I descended. The air changed. Got thicker. Utter. Like breathing memories. The walls began to bleed. Not with blood but with moments. I saw flashes of myself. Crying in the break room, screaming at my reflection, burying the last of my hope under layers of retail training videos. I saw my parents' faces fade. My friends forget me. My life before disappear like a mist burned away by fluorescent light. At the bottom of the stairs was a door. Same black steel as the one marked closure. But this one had no handle. No window. Just a keypad. 4 digits. I pressed 2 to 5, 3 to 0. Access denied. I tried 0 to 2, 5 to 3. Access denied. Then it hit me. I'd seen that number over and over again. On the clocks. On the records. My time card. I pressed 7 to 2, 2. Then paused. I needed 4. I added a 0 at the start. 0 to 7, 2 to 2. The door clicked open. Inside wasn't a room. Was a void. Endless. Black. Ill. And floating in that void was a counter. Like a checkout line. Behind it a register. Beeping slowly like a dying heart monitor. I approached, each step echoing forever. Behind the register stood me. Older. Worn. His eyes sunk in. His uniform yellowed and stained. He looked at me with a sadness so deep it punched the air from my lungs. Welcome to the end of your shift. I didn't speak. Couldn't. He pointed to the register. You can clock out now. But if you do, you forget everything. And blinked. Forget. The real world. Name. The sound of your mother's voice. Sky. All of it. I stepped back. He stepped forward. Or, he said, you take my place. Stay aware. Keep resisting. But you'll never leave. Why me? I whispered. Because you noticed. He smiled. Sadly. Most don't. I stared at the register. The red glow of the time card scanner pulsed softly. Waiting. And I realized this place never wanted to trap everyone. Just the ones who questioned it. The ones who tried to leave. I looked into the eyes of my future self. And I stepped forward. I reached out my hand. And turned the register off. The lights died. Silence swallowed me. And then, I woke up. In the real world. Or what I thought was real. I was lying in the parking lot of the mall. The sun was rising. The building was boarded up, weathered, dead. My uniform was gone. Just normal clothes. My phone buzzed. One message. You clocked out. But they still remember you. I stood up slowly. Inside the mall, past the broken glass and boarded doors. I saw myself. Standing behind the information desk. Smiling. Watching. Waiting. And I realized I left something behind. Maybe everything.